What the hell? Hey guys. So I went and did something that is kind of unlike me. I got a Helix. This is my first digital modeling setup. I've played with them. I've been familiar with them. I've paid a lot of attention to all the bands that I see live to see, what they're playing and how their tone is. And I decided to pick one of these up because I have a question. And the question is, I know that generally speaking with all these digital modelers, a lot of them are doing really great in terms of tone. And when you listen to them, they can make what kind of comes across as really great recorded sounds. But, where they tend to fall flat, in my experience, is they will never feel like an amp is in the room. It's not going to have that push. And so I wanted to kind of try it and do a couple things to see, well, can you get close while integrating with some old vintage tube amp power sections? And so that's what I'm going to work on. I want to do some comparisons where, I'm just setting up the Helix by itself, and then I'm going to try, the preamp into, the power amp of the 2B, and then I'm going to try, the full model out of, the amp and cab and everything into the just a straight power amp, tube power amp. So I just kind of want to see, is there a way to get these things to have that feel of an amp in the room, or is it just not possible, or kind of where do things stand? So anyway, just kind of messing around and seeing what we can learn about combining, this new technology with, the classic big tube power sections. All right, so check it out and let me know what you think. Okay, so I'm going to use the model for the Mark IV. I don't have one anymore, but I definitely know how they should feel and sound. And also in previous videos, I showed how the Mark IV is really tonally actually pretty darn similar to my old loop-modded Mark IIB. They definitely share more in common than, with like the 3 or the 2C Plus. So I'm going to start out by just having the Helix go directly into the DAW. I'm just going to have the amp, the 5-band EQ, and then also have the Mesa Vintage 3412 with it being mic'd up with a 906. And keep in mind, I don't have a 906, but I do use a 609. So, it's not going to be exact because I just don't happen to have all that, but I think we're going to try to get close and see how it sounds. So here is just the straight Helix all by itself. Okay, now for the next sample, we're going to take the Helix and we're going to run just the Mark IV amp, a full amp, out of the Helix into the power amp, and then from the power amp into the V30 cab, and mic'd with the 609. Okay, for the next tone, we're going to take a Mark IV preamp only, and we're going to run that into the FX Return of the Mark IIB. And something to keep in mind on these, the 5-band EQ is after the FX Return, so we're going to zero all that over here so that it's just the preamp with no extra 5-band EQ, and then run all that on the where it comes in on the FX loop on here, down into the cab. All right, and for the last tone, we're going to go all amp with the loop modded 2B. Check it out. Okay, so here's some wrap-up thoughts, what I thought about it. You guys, obviously weigh in, see what you think about it. The straight tone, just with the whole simulation coming out of the Helix, honestly, it sounded pretty bad, in my opinion. It was pretty muddy and hard to kind of get rid of the mud. Where it first started to sound good is where I would take the whole, amp setup with a cab and everything, and then run it into the straight power amp. Keeping in mind that the power amp is meant to be very clear. It doesn't add any color. It just amplifies exactly what's there. That one, it had pretty good tone recorded down here on the microphone. However, I will say that there was still no push. So it had the tone, but it definitely did not have the push. So for the third tone, where I did the preamp out of here only and then went into the FX Return up here to utilize this power section and also this GEQ, that was the first time where it started to get some push. And that's really one of the things I wanted to know with this experiment is, because typically the digital stuff, it can have really good tone, but it just doesn't feel like you're in the room with an amplifier. Well, moving it into the post-effects loop power section with the GEQ on here was the first time it started to feel like you had something in the room. And then finally, obviously with just the straight amp by itself, it had a ton of push, and that's kind of what you expect when you're in the room with a tube amp. So, I think there is some potential there to use this thing along with the power amp. However, I probably wouldn't use it just all by itself unless there was some strange extenuating circumstance, because I think it just leaves a lot on the table to not actually go through a real speaker cabinet. So anyway, that's what I thought. You guys can weigh in and see what you think about the whole recorded scenario. Thanks, bye.